Welcome back, everyone. We are diving into some really interesting stuff today. We are looking at a text called Why Jesus Killed the Fig Tree.
Okay.
And just to get this out of the way up front, we are not talking about gardening.
Right.
This is about faith and ideology, and it uses this idea of the fig tree as a jumping off point for talking about some really big concepts.
I see.
And
Honestly,
go ahead.
it really made me think about some of my own assumptions about the world.
Yeah, the title itself, Why Jesus Killed the Fig Tree, is certainly attention grabbing.
Yeah. It makes you want to know more.
It does.
So one of the first things the text talks about is this concept of a Weltanschauung. Have you ever heard that word before?
I have. It sounds very philosophical and maybe even a little bit intimidating. Yeah, it sounds really complicated, but it's actually not that hard to grasp. Basically, it means the lens through which we see the world.
Okay.
So all of our experiences, our beliefs, our values, they all come together to shape how we interpret reality. And that's our Weltanschauung.
So like two people could look at the exact same thing, and because of their different backgrounds and experiences, they would understand it in totally different ways.
Exactly. And the text argues that this lens, this Weltanschauung, has a huge impact on everything, from how we understand everyday events to like the big questions about life and the meaning of existence.
So our own personal worldview colors how we see literally everything.
Yeah, and it even gets into this idea that there is an objective truth out there.
Okay.
This truth exists independently of our own perceptions and our individual Weltanschauungs. What do you make of that?
Well, that's a pretty bold claim. It suggests that there is one ultimate reality that we should all be striving to see, but our own individual perspectives might be holding us back from fully grasping it.
Right. So then the question becomes, how do we even begin to approach this truth if our own viewpoints can be so limited?
Right. And how do we know if our own Weltanschauung is leading us toward that truth or maybe further away from it?
And that's where this whole fig tree thing comes into play. So we've got this framework of Weltanschauung, how we see the world through our own individual lenses.
Right.
And now let's dive into how the text applies that to this story of Jesus and the fig tree. So as a reminder, Jesus sees this fig tree, and from far away, it looks healthy and vibrant.
Right.
But when he gets closer, he sees that it's not bearing any fruit.
And he curses it and it withers away.
Exactly. But what's interesting is that the text doesn't just take the story literally.
Right.
It suggests that the fig tree is actually a metaphor for something much deeper.
Okay. Yeah, it's like a symbol.
It represents the spiritual state of humanity.
I see. So it's not just about a tree.
Not at all. And what it's saying is that the fig tree represents those who might look righteous or put together on the outside,
Okay.
but they're not actually living up to their full potential. They're not bearing the fruit,
Yeah.
you know?
So there's this idea of authenticity. Like, it's not enough to just go through the motions or put on a good front.
Right. It's about aligning our actions with some kind of deeper purpose.
And what is that deeper purpose according to the text?
Well, it talks about this connection to something it calls the divine. Yeah. It doesn't get super specific about what exactly that means, but it suggests that when we're disconnected from the source, we become like that fig tree, unable to fulfill our true purpose.
So we're not living in alignment with our true nature.
Exactly. And the text uses this ancient Greek word logoi
Okay.
to describe these kind of like universal laws or principles that govern existence. It's like a blueprint for all of creation.
So everything in the universe, including us humans, has a specific place and a specific purpose within this grand order.
Yeah. And when we're in sync with those logoi, our lives kind of hum along in harmony with the world around us.
But when we're out of sync,
Exactly.
that's when things start to fall apart.
Yeah, it creates disharmony both within ourselves and in the world around us.
So the text is saying that our internal state is reflected in the external world.
Exactly. And it takes it even further by suggesting that this disconnect from the divine that we were talking about before, that this disconnect can actually manifest as like problems in the world. So things like, pollution conflict, even like personal struggles.
Right.
These could all be seen as symptoms of a deeper disconnect from these universal truths, from these logoi.
So it's a call to kind of like realign ourselves with that deeper order.
Yes. And what I find so fascinating about this is that this idea that our inner world and the outer world are connected, it's something that's been around for centuries.
Right.
And it kind of makes you think, like maybe our actions and our thoughts and our beliefs have a bigger impact than we realize.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that we're all connected and what we do matters.
Yeah.
It impacts the world around us.
This text is really taking us on a trip. We started with this whole Weltanschauung thing, how our viewpoints shape our reality.
Right.
And then we got into this whole symbolic fig tree representing our potential and our connection to something bigger.
Yeah, it's a lot to wrap your head around.
It is. But buckle up, because the text doesn't stop there.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, yeah. It gets even more out there. Like, it starts critiquing science.
Science.
Yeah, and then it even argues that monarchy is the best form of government.
Whoa, hold on a second. Monarchy. That seems a little outdated, don't you think?
I know, right? It definitely caught me off guard, but remember what we were saying before about being open to different perspectives?
Right, of course.
Yeah.
So let's try to understand where this text is coming from. What does it actually say about science?
Okay, so it's not that it's like anti-science or anything. Oh, it acknowledges that science is valuable and it's given us all these amazing insights.
Right.
But it argues that science shouldn't be the only lens through which we view the world.
So it's about balance, like acknowledging that there might be things that science can't fully explain.
Exactly. It's like science can tell us how the universe works, but it doesn't necessarily answer the question of why. Like, what's the point of it all? What's the meaning?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Those are questions that science alone might not be equipped to answer.
Right. And that's where the text brings in this idea of a more holistic approach to knowledge, one that includes both the scientific and the spiritual.
So we need to look at the world through multiple lenses in order to get the full picture.
Exactly. Now, the whole monarchy thing, that's where things get a little trickier.
Yeah, monarchy isn't exactly a popular word these days.
Yeah, and I get it. But it's important to remember that the text isn't necessarily talking about monarchy in the traditional sense, like kings and queens and all that.
Okay.
It's more about this idea of a ruler who embodies divine will.
Okay, so like a divinely appointed leader.
Yeah. Someone who acts as a conduit between the heavens and the earth. It's more of an archetype than like a specific political system.
Interesting. So it's not necessarily about advocating for a return to monarchy, but maybe about exploring what it means to have leadership that is aligned with a higher purpose.
That's a really good way to put it. And, whether or not we agree with the text's conclusions, it definitely makes you think.
It does. It challenges us to examine our assumptions and to really consider what we believe and why.
Exactly. And isn't that what this is all about?
Yeah, pushing ourselves to think differently and to engage with these big questions, even if there aren't any easy answers.
Exactly. Well said. That wraps up our deep dive into why Jesus killed the fig tree. It's been quite a journey exploring these ideas of Weltanschauung the fig tree as a metaphor, and even touching on some controversial topics like science and monarchy. But at its core, this text is really about encouraging us to examine our own beliefs and to consider the possibility that there might be more to reality than meets the eye. So as you go about your day, keep those fig trees in mind, those things that might be holding you back or preventing you from bearing fruit in your own life. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and most importantly, keep an open mind. Thanks for joining us.